Greetings from the Alexandrina Council. Let's meet the driving force behind the Alexandrina community. Chief Executive Officer, Andrew MacDonald. Mayor, Keith Parks. Deputy Mayor, Councillor, Michael Scott. West Ward, Councillor Bill Coomans. Councillor Lou Nicholson. Councillor Michael Scott. North Ward, Councillor Craig Maidment. Councillor Sue Miller. Councillor Christy Thornton. South Ward, Councillor Margaret Gardner. Councillor Millie Livingston. And finally, Councillor Peter Oliver.
So, good afternoon. Welcome to our council meeting of the 19th of January 2026. Let you know this meeting is held in accordance with the Local Government Act, and its applicable regulations, codes and practices. An audio recording of the meeting will be made for minute-taking purposes and will last the length of the open meeting, and the audio file will be available on the council website. You can see that we've got our friend from South Coast Television here makes a video, which is also circulated on social media. So if you could please, if you have any phones or smart devices, please put them onto silent so that we don't hear them during the meeting and interrupt us. I'd like to especially welcome the members of the gallery. We always do that, but it's great to see so many members of the gallery here and really appreciate your interest in what's going on. That's good. I'm sure you're all aware that because you're in the gallery, you don't have the opportunity to address the council or make comment. You're just here to observe. Those who are unfamiliar with the venue, toilets are directly through that way, and there's several ones there, so it's all good. So we'll get on with our meeting. So, as you are all aware, there was a bushfire late yesterday afternoon. It started between Tuparang and Nankita, and it caused extensive damage to farmland and structures. I believe there were 2 houses that have been lost, and the CFS have done an absolutely amazing job, and they're still out there now putting out spot fires, cleaning up and doing some back burning. The fire is under control, but it's still a huge fire. We now know the conditions change and we need to remain vigilant and responsive. On behalf of Council, I really would like to express my empathy and support for the members of our community who have lost and been affected by this fire. I'd also like to praise the CFS and their volunteers on the property and numerous landowners out there with their farm appliances, putting out spots here and there and working on it. We've been very fortunate. It's the largest fire we've had since the Tuparang fire, which is over 4 years ago, probably nearer 6. So we have been extremely fortunate over the last few years, but these things do happen. And as many of you may be aware, that the Prime Minister has declared this Thursday, the 22nd of January, as a National Day of Mourning in relation to the Bondi terrorist attack, which happened on the 14th of December last year. Council will be flying its flags at half-mast throughout the day, and while many of us will be at home at that time, I encourage you to observe a minute's silence at 6:31 p.m. Australian Central Standard Time to remember the 15 people who lost their lives, but also the many people whose lives will be impacted forever by that event. And finally, I would like to acknowledge the outstanding work of the Goolwa Community Association and its volunteers in conducting their latest event, the Riding Out the Bloom concert featuring Darryl Braithwaite, which took place on the Goolwa Oval on Saturday evening. Almost 2,300 people, about 700 locals, so a huge number of people come from outside of the area and visited and stayed overnight. They've done an amazing job. They put on this year, that new group, they put on the Goolwa pageant, and they also then did the concert on the wharf on New Year's Eve. So it's great to have people like that in our community doing such good things and making our residents but also visitors really enjoy themselves. So well done and congratulations. So I'd like to welcome our elected members. We have no apologies and no leave of absence at this stage, but we have a request from Councillor Oliver for a leave of absence for the meeting of the 16th of February, and I need somebody to move that we accept. Move Councillor Livingston. Seconded Councillor Scott. You have to put your hand out, not talk to me. And so, any questions or discussion about it? No, so I'll put that to you. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. So, we'd also like to welcome our Chief Executive Officer, Andrew McDonald, our General Manager Community, Stacey Bateson, our General Manager Infrastructure, Alan Harvey, our General Manager Corporate, Tash Hunt, our Chief Financial Officer, Andrew Alderson, our Manager of Governance and Communications, Lachlan Miller, our Minutes Secretary, Tanya Cregan, and some of our other staff who are here as required. Now, if you're able, if you're not standing already, but if you're able, could you please stand for the local government prayer and the acknowledgement of lands. Almighty God, we beseech thee to grant thy blessing upon the works of this council. Guide us in our deliberations for the advancement and the true welfare of the people of this district. The Alexandrina Council and its communities acknowledge the Ngarrindjeri, the Paramount and the Ghana people as the traditional custodians of the lands and waters of our council district. Thank you. So just remind council members, if you have a conflict of interest and for the purposes of the Act, Part 4 of the Act, Division 1, Subdivision 4, in a matter which will be before the council at this meeting, you're asked to disclose the interest to council, provide full and accurate details of the relevant interest at the beginning of the meeting, and you're also reminded that you must deal with that conflict of interest in accordance with the relevant provisions of Subdivision 4 at the time the item arises for consideration. We've got two declarations from Councillor Oliver. Can you tell us what they are?
Item 8.3, general conflict of interest, and item 9.7, I have a material conflict of interest.
Councillor Livingston.
Thank you, Mayor Parks. I have a general conflict of interest at item 9.2. Although not financial, I may gain an indirect benefit. I'll remain in the chamber, debate and not vote. And I have a material conflict of interest at item 9.3 due to a related party, and will leave the chamber for that part of the item when it comes up.
Any others, Councillor Coomans?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Parks. I'm a full-time member of the Fleurieu Regional Assessment Panel, and I'm concerned that item 12.2 is an item that will come before the panel, and I would like to declare a material conflict of interest in relation to that. I won't enter into the debate and leave the chamber when we consider it.
And I will have a general conflict of interest at 9.2 as well, along with Councillor Livingston, in relation to the Murray-Darling Association, because I am one of the delegates, and obviously I will not vote, but I will stay in the chamber.
No others? That's good. So item 2 is the confirmation of minutes. It's the confirmation of our ordinary council meeting minutes of the 15th of December 2024. There's a recommendation that those minutes be received as true and correct. Move Councillor Maidment. Seconder. Councillor Oliver. Are there any questions or discussions relating to those minutes? If not, I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Item 3 is adjourned debate. There is none. Item 4 is presentations and deputations. 4.1 is Mr Ian Wood wants to make a deputation to us regarding the proposed Area Q development. So welcome Ian.
Thank you.
Now just, do you need more than 5 minutes?
Yes please, I'd like the 10 minutes if that
10
was
minutes?
okay. Thank you.
Everybody happy with that? Yep, so that's fine, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to first acknowledge the presence of Ngarrindjeri Elder Cedric Varco Here this evening, CEO Andrew McDonald, Mayor Parkes, Councillors Second Nature Conservancy, Biodiversity Victor Harbour, the Dennis family and members of the public. Good evening. My name is Ian Wood and I stand before you as a 63-year-old semi-retired engineer with 2 children. I've spent many years riding the hills and surfing in the nearby lands and sea. As I grow older, I have begun to reflect on the legacy that I and many of the people in this room will leave over the next 20 to 30 years. I do not believe that we leave this planet in the same condition as we found it. The constant increase in population, the pressure on the land to feed and house the growing billions of people has made it very difficult for the earth to maintain its health. It is possible for nature to exist, but it must be given designated survival areas. The land between Goolwa and Middleton is one of those very special plots of land. It encompasses existing conservation parks, it has wetlands, Aboriginal significance, significant flora and fauna, and as you can see tonight, a growing number of people who want to see this parcel of land developed into a conservation area. For some of the people who don't know about the land we're talking about, it's the area that's coloured. It comprises of 10 lots of land between Goolwa and Middleton on the south side of the Port Elliot Road. 3 are held by various government bodies as conservation areas, 1 containing the recycling facility, 2 held by the Dennis family, and 4 by private owners, including the Traeger land, which is referred to as Area Q, lots 2, 4, 7 and 9. If we compare proposed areas for development, in the Goolwa area we see very little flora and fauna, largely farming type blocks. In the area between Goolwa and Middleton, as already stated, there are 3 conservation areas. 5 of you include the 2 lots held by the Dennis family, given the work that Callum Dennis has gone into greening the area. We are all in this room indebted to your efforts. Many thanks from us all. The recycling facility, which is roughly 50% vegetated, and the remaining area Q has significant vegetation and wetlands. So let's go on a journey through this parcel of land. Mining leases were granted to A.H. Traeger November 78, 3.2 hectares, and August 2003, 16.3 hectares, a total of 19.5 hectares out of 32. Extracts from the mining lease, which you won't be able to read, but I'll just proceed. The mining was to be done in a staged fashion and rehabilitated as mining progressed. Aboriginal artefacts were to be identified, work stopped, and relevant authorities notified. We understand that there are numerous issues that relate to the lack of remediation of this land and Aboriginal artefacts that were not necessarily reported. Interestingly, in 2004, A.H. Traeger's application for a concrete batching plant was rejected by the council. One of the main reasons was the long-term sense of separation between the township be continued and improved, not eroded away. In 2007, both councils and Planning SA worked together to develop the Draft South Coast Master Plan, which generated a special vision of the region would look like moving towards 2031. It was generated to provide statutory guidance to councillors and councils in reviewing and updating their individual development plans. It showed development in Goolwa North, Victor Harbour, and limited development on Middleton West. Again, the plan reinforced the importance of rural space between townships and links to the coast. The entire 10 lots of land, which included Area Q and the recycling facility, were earmarked for conservation and recreation and were not considered for any development. In 2013, Sally Roberts, Manager of Planning and Development for the Alexandrina Council, wrote a letter to Mr Craig Rowe regarding the development of Traeger land, rejecting future rezoning of the land to allow development. The letter contained all the arguments against the development that are still occurring today. For your community, it's a feeling of deja vu. Again, in a notice of meeting 16th of May 2016, 2.1 Middleton Rural Living and Conservation Zones, there was a legal opinion given to the council on whether they could develop the land. Council received advice from Norman Waterhouse, lawyers, dated the 31st of March 2016. Council no longer supports the rezoning of the land for rural living and generally not support future rezoning proposals for the rural and or residential purposes. In the council meeting held on the 4th of July 2016, item 15.4, the information relating to the 2.1 above was made confidential. and it was said not to be made publicly available until further order of the council or unless revoked earlier by the Chief Executive. Lord Mayor, your constituents will be seeking the release of the minutes relating to these documents. In the council meeting dated the 19th of the 8th, 2019, the council then supports the development and is noted in the council meeting minutes, the council resolves, item 5.6, to reaffirm its support for the future rezoning of Traeger land to enable future use for urban development. Support the endeavours of A, B and C Traeger, in the preparation and lodgement of a formal submission seeking a review of the existing boundary of the Environment and Food Production Area, EFPA, and prepare and urgently forward corresponding the council's support. When I review this, as a ratepayer, I'm beginning to question the money the council is spending on the development of Traeger land, and will be interested, Mayor Parks, in the council providing an account on the expenditure given to date that's largely been spent on one family. In 2015, Ben Symes and Sherry Bain authored the Goolwa June and Tockamore Reserve Environmental Action Plan in conjunction with many local and state bodies, including the Alexandrina Council. It focused on the 4 conservation areas, 1 outside Area Q. In the summary, the conservation areas are home to the following endangered species of flora and fauna: state vulnerable hooded plovers, brown quail and banded stilts, nationally endangered Australian painted snipe, 15 other rare birds, a number of rare and endangered plant species, and the state rare swamp mat. Mayor Parks, do you think that these animals stop at the boundaries of the respective conservation parks, or do you think they also inhabit the adjoining lots, particularly given the swamp areas through lots 4 and 7, which is Traeger land? The GART report came out in 25, and in the Premier's forward he notes, we are protecting our environment, creating cooler, greener and more attractive places to live. In the report noted, focus on the development of affordable housing for Goolwa and Victor Harbour, in particular important to maintain the interurbanal breaks between Goolwa and Victor Harbour to maintain sub-regional identity, including Middleton and Port Elliot. Middleton and other minor towns are not noted for future growth given their limited infrastructure. Councils are encouraged to investigate where land for future growth be best located. The proposed Area Q development came out in, I think I've got the dates wrong, I think it was 2025, but it certainly initially it nominated the Area Q for the Phase 2 development, 15 to 30 years, but it was brought forward to Phase 1, next 15 years to seek community feedback. It was noted that Area Q, there was a lack of wastewater infrastructure, encroaches on township separation, impact on sensitive environment, potential flooding impacts rural character and township identity, and Narrandjeri cultural heritage. In the community consultation held on September 2025, the proposal to develop Area Q was rebutted by 78%. And I think if you took out the people who actually had a financial interest, the rebuttal would have been a lot higher. The council had asked the question and the residents had answered their question with an unequivocal no. It was the strongest rebuttal of any of the proposed development areas. So in summary, August the 17th, the application by AH Traeger was rejected because of township identity. 2007, council and council nominated 10 lots of land as future conservation areas. Note they also included the north side of that road. Rezoning and developing the Traeger land does not meet a single one of the council's original criteria for housing development under the SCQS. Development on Area Q was overwhelmingly rejected by the people in the community. It had been excluded from the GARP and was rejected by the Minister of Planning SA as it was not needed to meet the housing quota required by the state government. It substantially compromises existing flora and fauna, as identified in numerous reports, does not identify Aboriginal issues, and profoundly impacts the identity and separation of Middleton and Goolwa. So we no longer understand, but most of us thought after the summary of results that it was all over.
Sorry, Ian, we've over 10 minutes now, so if you could sort of...
Yep.
I won't stop you, but if you could finish off quickly for us,
Yep.
thanks.
I was worried it would go for a bit longer. Sorry about that. So this then came out subsequent to those meetings, and the deputation, 78% oppose it. So your community, Mayor Parks, does not understand on what grounds this proposal can still be considered after the history, and questions what is driving the council's appetite for developing the Traeger land, which will invariably lead to backfilling of Area Q. We've sent 2 open letters to yourselves, copied them to councillors, but we don't believe that you have actually answered the question that was asked. Councillors have a legal obligation under the Local Government Act of 1999. One, and I've extracted a couple, act in the best interests of the community as a whole and not individuals, and protect biodiversity and natural vegetation. So in summary, the land between Goolwa and Middleton is a unique piece of land, and once housing starts, it will quickly snowball and the housing backfill will commence. Flora and fauna will be lost, Aboriginal cultural heritage will be lost, town identity will be lost, and the great opportunity to create something very special for future generations will be lost. It is the responsibility of everybody in this room to protect this area. The council and community have demonstrated what can be done if we all work together. The assessing, creating the surface reserve to protect the hooded plovers, the development of Rattling Beach Conservation Area, the work done by Callum Dennis and Bed Simons on Tookamore Reserve, and the ridge vegetation of the land by Callum Dennis, Lot 6 and 8, are such examples that they've only improved our area and are used as stories to support the Alexandrina Council's own Environmental Action Plan 2030. I would like to think that collectively we can work together to create a conservation area that encompasses the 10 lots of land. It is understood that a motion was to be tabled in this meeting suggesting such an undertaking, but was delayed. I urge the Council to remove Area Q from the South Coast Growth Strategy Plan and give time for such an undertaking to commence. Will Mayor Parks, councillors, planning personnel and developers look in the mirror in 10 years' time and will say to their children, I'm glad I created 100 lots of land? Or will you look in the mirror and say, we created a conservation park for all the South Coast residents, tourists and future generations to enjoy? We note the recent ABC News article where the Coorong, River Murray, Coorong, Lake Alexandra are now listed as critically endangered. This is very close to that piece of land. The world is living on borrowed time. It is our responsibility as a community to come together and work as one with State, Narrandjeri Aboriginal Corporation and bodies like the National Parks and Wildlife to replicate the recent success in the purchase of Mundu and New Island for conservation purposes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We'd just like to continue with the meeting. I appreciate your enthusiasm and I support Korean, but it is a council meeting and it's a legally binding meeting. And there are procedures that we do abide by and we must insist that they're abided by. So Ian, and we have allowed Ian to go well over the normal time because we do respect the fact of what you're talking to us about and how many of you are showing such interest. So we are trying to do the right thing. Are there any questions of Ian regarding Councillor Oliver?
Thank you, Ian. I just wonder, one of the plots is obviously the rubbish dump. And I'm just wondering, you haven't mentioned or talked to that issue very much. Do you think that the recycling plant and the rubbish dump should be closed and rehabilitated as part of this, or do you think it should continue to operate as a rubbish dump in part of Area Q?
That in 2 ways.
Thank
One
you.
is no, it's already 50% green and you can see it up there at the moment. So, and the area needs a recycling facility. So I'm not opposed to it staying there at all. I'm going to draw just a little story. I build sewage treatment plants. We have a company in South Australia that builds water and wastewater treatment plants. When the Bolivar wastewater treatment plant was built in the 60s, 10 years later, land and house packages were offered at $50,000. A lot of people jumped on the bandwagon. 5 years later, when they're living there, the chief operating engineer who I knew was receiving phone calls on a Saturday, can you please shut down the sewage treatment plant, we're trying to have a barbecue. Now you get 100 million litres of sewage coming at you a day, you just can't turn that off. While the recycling facility is not a wastewater treatment plant, it is a functioning facility that takes waste. Now I think there are regulations as to how close you actually can develop, but I could see 10 or 20 nice lots of land being developed adjacent to that recycling facility, and you, the council, are then requested to move the recycling facility as they try to move all of it. You can't. So there's a cost there that you need to consider if you do develop next to that land.
Thanks, Ian. Are there any other questions? Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Ian, for the presentation. Regarding the depth and quality of the information that you've presented, what would you say to anybody who suggested that yourself or other interested parties who didn't support development on this land had a sort of a personal financial interest in not having residences developed there?
I'm not sure. I personally don't have a financial investment on incentive to get anything developed there. I mean, I'm really focusing this on what I can leave Charlie, my daughter, what you can leave your kids, and what they can then leave their kids. The financial thing is not something that I've considered in any of my discussions. I have no financial interest. I just want to keep this very special piece of land with the flora and the fauna, and I want us to keep that in the future. So when you write your 2050 report in the environment, you can say, we created this, and it needs to be a we. We need to go on a journey together. If part of the council is saying they don't want it, and we're going to the state government saying we want it, as soon as we come divided, we will lose the argument. We need to work as one on this. And Anne Frager needs to be acknowledged that there's a piece of land there, and in some way we need to be able to extract her from that piece of land, because I think she would like to move on from it. And so we all need to work together.
Councillor Scott, you had a question?
Yes, you mentioned a couple of times about the need for the federal and state and local government and the community to be working together. How do you envisage that happening in relation to this?
To be truthful, I'm not sure. I've not embarked on a crusade like this before, but we have a significant number of people that are willing to work together collectively, preferably with the council, to develop a framework and then go to the state government. So that we can look at the way they were succeeded with Mundu and New Ireland in the last 2 weeks. So we can use that as a framework to see how that progresses. We've got Narrandjeri interests in that area. It was a well-known tea tree area where Narrandjeri had middens and buried their dead. So there are all those people to work with. This is not an easy journey. This is not an easy journey for anybody. But we have significant resources within the people of this room that will facilitate that journey. And if the council will work with them, we will work all together and try and develop that. I don't have a road plan, but I have a desire.
Any further questions? No. So thanks very much, Ian. Thanks for your time, and thanks for the members of the gallery for your interest and for being here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 5 is petitions. There are no petitions. Before we do that, Alan, can you give us an update on the bushfire from council's perspective? I'll seek a leave of the meeting to do that. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Yep.
You go ahead. Thank you, through the Mayor, and thank you for the opportunity to provide an update. Echoing your thanks to the CFS and other emergency services that were on site to support that community in Tipperang and beyond, yesterday and today. From a council perspective, there hasn't been much for us to get involved with. We have been involved with some road closures. That happened overnight. Otherwise, there's been very little that we have been asked to do, noting that we provide support rather than upfront emergency services. So we get contacted for that support by the lead agency, in this case CFS, and we see if we can help. We can't always help, but in this case, they've obviously managed this situation themselves, in this incident themselves, without the need for that additional support, which is a credit to them and a credit to the other emergency services that have been there with them. So part of what council does is support response, but a more critical part is that we also get involved very heavily in recovery. Now, recovery is an area that is undefined in emergency management, and that does prove to be challenging from time to time as different agencies, including ourselves, try and help our communities through whatever they're going through, and no incident, small or large, is any different from the other in terms of how it impacts people and how it can have a long-lasting impact on people. We are aware that within that community there are some people that have been significantly impacted. We have, through our local government functional support group, who are a group that operate on our behalf or on the behalf of the sector, as a group, as a entity that sits with the CFS, SES, the police and other functional support groups during emergencies. Through them we have found that the CFS hadn't initially made contact with the emergency relief functional support group, but through our contact with them they have now engaged with the emergency relief functional support group, which is run by the Department of Housing, and as such we have been given details of an organisation that we can engage with to support those members of the community. Again, we won't be leading that support, we'll be providing the opportunity for that conversation to occur by talking to our residents and then providing those details and giving them the introduction to then have that conversation about how they can be supported through this incredibly difficult and traumatic time for them. We are aware that from the CFS perspective, they are looking, and people may have seen the recent downgrading of that incident to a watch and act from where it was a leave now. So we're very pleased to see that, and I'm sure the CFS are very pleased to be able to say that, and with some confidence they're obviously getting more confidence around their ability to contain that fire. So we definitely wish them the best of luck in that endeavour and hope that comes sooner rather than later. In terms of ongoing, from a recovery perspective, we have had a meeting today across council and we have discussed the various aspects of this incident and the sort of support that we might need to provide, waste management, planning, the community support that we've been talking about, what will have to happen once the road closures come off, and what we will need to do as a council to survey and check those roads to ensure that they are safe to travel, and what we need to do to enable that to happen. That could be vegetation management, that could be replacing signs, that could be having to replace road services. We don't know yet what the severity of damage there is to infrastructure because we haven't been able to get in, quite rightly, to be able to survey that. So we will do that as quickly as we can once we're allowed in. I can advise though the one thing we know we have lost as a council is a grader. That was our grader that was on the news this morning, and but that's why we have insurance, and we will go through the process of replacing that grader. But we will ensure over the next many months, because it takes a while to replace such large pieces of plant, that that won't impair our services to our community, and we'll look for other opportunities to bring on services to keep up with both our unsealed roads program and our grading program, our patrol grading program. So there has been quite a lot of work done today by the team here in terms of looking now at the response, but looking ahead at the recovery. And yeah, we're all very confident. We're confident that we've covered most things. There will be something, I'm sure, that will pop up that we haven't, but we're in a very good place to keep supporting the community, those both directly, significantly impacted, and those that have been directly or indirectly impacted by this event. Yeah. So, sorry. One thing I failed to mention was we have our teams particularly have been making contact from economic development perspective. So we've had our economic development team reach out to the businesses in that environment, because they're in that area, because there are a few, to check on them to see how they're going. And they've been responding back to us over the course of the day, providing information on where they're at. And I don't think there's anyone that's significantly impacted. But as I said, we are aware of some residents who are significantly impacted, and this is a massive, this is a huge deal for them. And we have been able to make contact with them directly and have a conversation with them just to reassure them that we're here. We're aware of where they are and what's going on, and they've been able to provide us with a bit more detail about what their plans are and what they've been able to do in the course of the last 24 hours to secure, in some part, accommodation for the short term. But we'll go back to them with this information we have from our friends in the Emergency Relief Functional Support Group about what we can deal with more long term, because recovery is never short, it's always long, and it will be some time before those people particularly will be able to draw a line under the event.
Thanks very much, Alan. So item 6 is questions with notice. There are no questions with notice. 7 is questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? Councillor Coomans.
Thanks, Mayor Parks. My question is in relation to this area Q. The state government recently purchased Mundu and Long Islands for conservation purposes, which has been an excellent buy, and I thank them for it. In relation, therefore, to Area Q, which is a very topical at the moment, and in particular the portion known as a Traeger's land, I understand that there may be a push to have council request the state government to purchase this land also and retain it for conservation purposes. Therefore, my question is, what discussions have taken place with the Premier, the Minister for Planning, the Minister for Climate, Environment and Water, and or any other member of the government or its administration in relation to their willingness to purchase this land? If so, are they aware of the purchase price already being offered by a high-end builder?
Through the Chair, there's been no such conversations at all. There was some consideration internally from a council member as to whether or not that could be an option, but there's been no formal anything at this stage.
Any further questions without notice? Councillor Scott.
This may have to be taken on notice, but in relation to the announcement by the Federal Minister for Water, Murray Watt, that the river from the Darling to the mouth is now critically endangered, and that any new projects have to have federal government clearance and approval, how does the Planning Department see the South Coast Growth Strategy going when there is grave doubt about any future expansion of any enterprises, and that I think I'm right in saying that it was said that the Greater Regional Adelaide Plan will require 40 gigalitres of water, I think I'm right in saying. So where do you see that all going?
Thank you. Through the Mayor, it's a good question. It is a question we will need to take on notice. I will say we've been asking similar questions since the announcement about how that will integrate with the Planning, Development and Infrastructure Act and development applications in particular. But also when we're looking at policy, creating strategies and looking at code amendments, what impact will that announcement have? So we don't have those answers yet. We can take it on notice though and come back to Council once we have answers to that.
Further questions? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I have some questions about the Strathalbyn Town Plan, and I will be moving that they be included in the questions and the answers be included in the minutes. My questions are, how progressed is the Strathalbyn Town Plan 2014-2024 review? What is the anticipated timeline for completing the Strathalbyn Town Plan 2014 to 2024 review? And when will public consultation occur on the Strathalbyn Town Plan 2014-2024 review? The reasons that I'm asking for, in moving this to have them included in their minutes and the answers, is because there are two items on the agenda tonight. The item 9.5, the draft state election advocacy plan on page 42, and item 12.3, which is a confidential strategic land program discussion around 22 and 24 South Terrace, Strathalbyn, on page 235. And I'm asking these because I asked questions about development statistics at the 17th of June 2024 and 16th of June 2025 council meeting that highlighted the significant current and imminent growth occurring in Strathalbyn and surrounds. And the Strathalbyn Town Plan is approaching 12 years since it was adopted. 70,000 was included in the last financial year budget and then carried forward that 70,000 to this year. And I recently asked questions at the 15th, my most recent questions were at the 15th September 2025 council meeting. So it would be helpful if we could please have for the community just a bit of an indicative time frame and answers to the three questions. And I seek for a seconder when the answer's been given. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Through the Mayor, in terms of the progression of the Strathalbyn Town Plan, the procurement's been completed. We've had a start-up meeting with the consultancy that will be assisting the strategic development team with the project. The project team's been provided with a brief and have toured Strathalbyn with myself and the Manager Strategic Development. Initial consultation information is currently being drafted to facilitate the first of two community consultation periods. That's where we're at right now. In terms of the anticipated timeline, the Strathalbyn Town Plan is scheduled to be completed before the end of 2026 to enable it to inform the state government-driven local area plan, which is the new name for the housing strategy. And the initial consultation is currently planned for April or May 2026. This initial consultation will seek feedback from the community on what they would like included in the town plan. From there, and in collaboration with council members, a draft Strathalbyn Town Plan will be developed, and a second round of consultation will be facilitated later in 2026 to seek feedback on the draft town plan.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Miller.
I've moved that those questions and the answers be included in the minutes. May you please seek a seconder for that?
Yep. So is there a seconder, Councillor Livingston? Yep. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Are there any other questions? Not, we'll move on to item 8, which is notice of motions. Now 8.1 is a notice of motion from Councillor Oliver regarding the enhancement of the planning process and environmental scanning. It's moved by Councillor Oliver. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, please, Mayor. Very briefly, thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity to move this motion. We've developed a solid foundation for our strategic and annual business planning framework. This motion seeks to further enhance this with the introduction of formalised environmental scanning, as discussed in the background to the motion. While in itself it's not a big deal and it won't be a large overhead, environmental scanning will enhance our understanding of our changing environment and elevate our external focus. It will make our business more flexible and adaptive with a greater level of control and ability to deal with our future. So I commend the motion to elected members. I hope that you'll vote for it. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Nicholson, you wish to speak to it too? You ask a question, yeah.
I suppose my question is just about the relevance of the motion when the administration's comments state that this will already occur. Can I pose my question to Councillor Oliver? Through the Mayor.
Thank you. It's certainly the case that there are elements of it at different levels and different sophistications, within our planning process. And our process is pretty young and it's still developing. What this is suggesting, and without going right through the background, is that we formalise that process and perhaps we have an appropriate short and brief workshop with some appropriate work done beforehand, so that way we can talk through all the potential issues confronting us at one time and then equate that into the plan. Thank you.
So do we have a seconder? Councillor Nicholson. Any discussion? Councillor Coomans, discussion?
It's more a question or a formal motion, because I think this deserves, and Councillor Oliver has mentioned a workshop, whether this needs to be workshopped a bit before we consider it. I don't fully understand it, to be honest, what you're proposing, and maybe in your closing your debate you might make it a bit more clear, but I would probably prefer to see a workshop of some sort on this matter.
Yes, Councillor Livingston.
Question. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding from the report is that the matters raised by Councillor Oliver will add to a process which we are essentially already doing, so it'll enhance it. It won't be a major administrative burden if we're already doing it.
Through the chair, so as the admin comments say, we generally do what this is referring to as a pestle analysis, which is looking at all of those various elements, but there's probably an opportunity to, I guess, more formally present, as part of the planning process, the results of a pestle analysis. So the admin comments do support that it's something we do, and if members were to pass this notice of motion, we would just strengthen some transparency with our council members around that particular process that we go through.
Sorry, with the approval of the mover and the seconder, I'm happy to support it, but I would like to see that it formally comes back to a workshop for us to consider, so it's just not lost, I guess, so that we can consider it further. So if the mover and seconder would be happy to have a 1, which is all on screen, and a number 2, that the environmental scanning process, however you may want to include it in there, does come back to a workshop for consideration or for further information, if you're going to do that anyway.
So, Councillor Oliver, as the mover, are you happy to have that added to it?
I would be, however,
Just yes or no?
Yes.
And Councillor Nicholson?
I'm not sure if I understand correctly, but my understanding is that point 1 would be that we are that it happen, and then the second point that we workshop it before considering it. But point 1 is considering it, to my understanding.
Yeah. You're happy with that?
So how can we resolve it and then consider it afterwards?
Through the chair, if I may, the motion that's before you really will not make, it's not a burden to administration. It's something we do. And in terms of the workshopping, given the nature of how council now considers its annual community plans and so on, it's through workshops. So this piece of work would naturally form part of a workshop discussion with council members. And if this motion was passed, the pestle analysis results would be more strongly embedded in the strategic planning or the annual community plan, whatever is relevant. So the nature of what council currently does, this will naturally flow with that process as far as I can see.
So yes or no, as a seconder, you're happy to have it included?
May I just see the wording?
We haven't got the wording yet.
I see. Okay, I'll accept it.
Can we have the wording, Councillor Livingston?
Can we, just something short to say that that it comes to a workshop. Pardon? No, I'm happy to adopt it. I just want it to formally come up when we're looking at the annual community plan.
Sure, then.
So it's there. Councillor Oliver.
Sorry, could I-
Councillor Gardner wants to speak to it. We're going around in circles, going
I
nowhere.
just wanted to withdraw my yes because I think the point is moot. I think it's just going to come out of the workshop
That's
process
right.
as the CEO sent, so I'd like to remove my consent,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Yep, that's fine. Councillor Gardner.
My question has been answered.
So is there any further discussion? You wish to write a reply?
Thank you, and I think the CEO has given an excellent response, but neither.
Yep. So I'll put the motion to you. All those in favour? Against? Anybody against? It's carried unanimously. I can't see you, Councillor Scott. Can't see you. Councillor Miller, you were in favour?
I had my hand up when you asked for against, Your Worship. I don't know why you don't see me.
I don't know why I didn't either. If I didn't, otherwise I would have asked you. So you ask your question. Eight point 2 is a motion from Councillor Miller regarding the federal parliamentary inquiry into local government funding and sustainability. It's moved by Councillor Miller. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, thank you, Worship. I note the administration's response, which I appreciate very much. This is really important that we add our voice, in particular that the funding, this inquiry, I've said it in the background, but without funding that comes from grants, that's 6% of our revenue. If we just tried to replace that alone, that is a significant burden on our ratepayers, and our rates would need to increase to cover that shortfall. So this is, I've asked for this to be on the agenda to draw attention to this, and in particular that the interim response to the inquiry about local government sustainability, the interim response suggested that there is not just a sustainability issue, there's a funding issue for local government, and it was touched on in the last meeting when I raised it. Uncompensated cost shifting from other tiers of government through additional legislative roles and obligations on councils that we don't get a choice about whether to provide or not remains a significant concern and continues to drive upward pressure on our operating costs and in turn on pressure on our rates. And a perfect example of that was mentioned before when we were talking about Area Q, the Strathalbyn Town Plan. The state government is now, in order to meet their own housing targets, requiring all councils to develop the local area plans, which are housing plans. They have not given us any money to do that. So we now have to do that with ratepayer money for our development and growth that we do not necessarily want. So that's just a perfect example of why this is so important. It's rural and regional councils that rely on this grant funding. It's all well and good to increase it, which is what I think we need to advocate for, but unless the model for distribution is reviewed as well, the metropolitan councils will get more and we'll get more, but the gap between what councils in the metropolitan area get and the councils in rural and regional areas get will continue to widen. This money, this grant funding is untied, which means the local community gets to decide what happens to it. That is so important. If this were to decrease or reduce, and it doesn't match, it's not indexed, it doesn't match the growing costs to councils, then we'll have to, whether we like it or not, reassess the scope and quality of our services and make a corresponding reduction to our expenses, or cease certain services and programs. 1% of our rates is I think about $450,000, so any decrease in our share will put pressure on rates. We need a larger share and more equitable share of federal tax revenue. Local government does so much that is not recognised, and I think there's no harm, Your Worship, in supporting this and making our own submission. No harm at all. It just adds our voice and supports the sector. So I please seek a seconder for this, and delegate to the CEO to make a submission on our behalf. I'm sure they're well across it. Thank you.
So do we have a seconder? Councillor Livingston? Any discussion? Councillor Nicholson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I support this motion. I think that if Council are already doing the work of preparing details for the Local Government Association to submit on behalf of all councils, that we could use that work to also form our own submission. And we know as a layer of government that indeed receive public consultation submissions, I believe it does give further weight to a perspective when you have an advocacy group developing a submission, but then individual members also go directly to the submission with their own unique perspective, giving a more robust picture of how they're impacted. So I actually think this would be an excellent thing for Council to do.
Any further discussion? No? So Miller, you'll close the debate if you speak. So any other discussion? No? So you have right of reply?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to make one point that I didn't make before, and that's to acknowledge the significant work that our council's doing on reducing costs, and that is critical, and I'm not diminishing that in any way by moving this motion. And that ongoing body of work will continue, I know, and I thank administration. However, the flip side of a reduced cost conversation is to increase revenue, not by general rates, but by increased financial assistance grant income. And that's where this is so important. Thank you.
End of the discussion. I just point out, I think Christy McBain is still the Minister for Local Government, Federal Minister. Christy McBain was the Mayor of Ballina Shire in New South Wales and spoke at the ALGA meeting some years ago and is 100% in favour of increasing financial assistance grants. That's what she spoke about. So the Minister, Federal Ministers, we're well aware, and we've done multiple submissions over the years. So I put it to you, all those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. So 8.3 is a motion from Councillor Coomans regarding council member appointment to an external committee. It's moved by you. Do you wish to speak? Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mayor. I wish to declare a general conflict of interest in relation to item 8.3, as there could be a perception that my private interest might result in me acting in a manner contrary to my public duty. As such, I will leave the chamber when the matter is discussed now and not participate in the debate or the vote. Thank you.
Councillor Coomans, do you wish to move it and speak to it?
Mayor Parks, maybe I'd like to move number 1 first, because there may be some discussion on number 2. So I'd like to move that my letter of resignation is noted as a council appointed liaison to the Friends of the Oscar W for the remaining term of council. And I guess I do so because I'm happy to have achieved what I set out to achieve. And it's now time to perhaps offer them some financial expertise support. So it's time for me to withdraw and to wish them well, as I'm confident they will be a success. I mentioned the steam salute, which was talked about over a period of time by the volunteers, and it did bring a tear to the eye when it occurred. So I'll move number 1 first.
So do we have a seconder? Councillor Maidment. Any discussion? Not Councillor Scott.
Just briefly, I just want to acknowledge the work that was done by Councillor Coomans. It was a very significant chapter in the history of the Oscar W and its relationship with the council, and I think that it has had a bearing on the outcome, and the outcome has been very satisfactory. So I just want to acknowledge that.
Any further discussion? I'll put the motion to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. So, Councillor Curtins, you want to move 2?
Yes, if I could move number 2, and I'm suggesting Councillor Oliver because he has been party to a lot of the latter discussions that we've had in relation to Oscar W. He also has a good financial background, and he's also part of the Wooden Boat Festival, so I think it's a very good fit. And I guess from my point of view, it's always been my modus operandi that when I leave an organisation in the senior level that I look at succession planning as an important part of that, and I would be very happy if Councillor Oliver was to take over. I know the Friends of the Oscar W are very much in favour of it, and Councillor Oliver has said that he's quite prepared to take it on, so I'll move number 2.
So do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Livingston? Any discussion? Councillor Gardner?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I do wonder about the usefulness of this position because I'm thinking of Armfield Slip, which was a Section 41 committee and subsequently became an incorporated body, just as the Oscar W Friends have recently become. So why would we appoint someone to Oscar W when we're not appointing someone to Armfield Slip? And I'm sure there might be other incorporated bodies too that might want a council representative, but maybe hadn't thought about it. Do we want to continue to support or provide a council representative to an incorporated body?
Just to clarify that, so council has always, as long as I can remember, had council members sit as a member of a committee on a body, following the request from that body. So if an organisation writes to us and said they would like, if possible, if somebody's interested, a council member to sit on there as a liaison to council, they'd appreciate it. And so that's up to then us to come up with somebody and fulfil that request. That's the way it's always been done. So, is there any further discussion, Councillor Miller?
I just have a question or 2 questions. I feel like a step is missing here. And just further to Councillor Gardner's point, this is now an external body that we're making an appointment to. There's an assumption here that we want to appoint a council liaison to the Friends of the Oscar W. So that's one issue. There's no, that I'm aware of, a written request recently since they've become an incorporated body to have a liaison person. And so we're not getting to choose whether we want one or not. The third point is, I don't understand what the council liaison officer does, particularly in the environment of now an incorporated body and the leases and what have you. And so I'll be voting against this for those points, not because of the PS Oscar W. I think if you took out the words Friends of Oscar W and just said appoint a council liaison to an external body, I would be asking, what does that person do? Why would we do it? And however, I did contemplate supporting it because my understanding is, despite transitioning away to Lease as an incorporated body, I understand that council still provides significant staff resources from our economic development team to the Friends of the Oscar W in terms of financial support, in presenting their budgets, and I understand that's almost the equivalent of 1 day a week, and they've had fortnightly meetings with staff. I think they have exceptional access to the administration. I think the relationship is really positive and they've come a long way. I really don't see the need for a council liaison officer, and that's the only reason. It's nothing else. It's just that I would have preferred to have a step in between this, that council determine whether they needed a council liaison officer or not, and understand what the role of that council is, that appointment does. So that's why I'm voting against it. I just think and I did ask this question at the last meeting about the process. So no, I won't be supporting this, but it's not because I have an issue with the Oscar or anything like that. I just think we've procedurally not approached this properly, and I don't understand what the role does, and I don't think there's a need for it. And I don't really have much more than that.
Any further discussion? Councillor Maitland.
Yes, some external bodies have within their constitution a council liaison. I'm one of those with the Over-Controlling Committee at Strath. So is there anywhere in the constitution of the Friends of the Oscar W that suggests that they might call upon the council to nominate someone?
Councillor Scott, you got a question?
I hear what everybody is saying, but there are two or three things here. One, it's gone back, we've had several liaison officers, and it even in our notes goes back to the late Jim Davis, had a long association. It is not a paid position, so there's no financial implication for the council. It has worked well. It is, I guess, a bridge between the two. And considering that everything is now working really well, the said liaison person may not have a very busy time. But I'm looking at it in the opposite thing. Why remove it? Someone wants to do it, happy to do it. The Oscar people are keen to have someone, which is good. Some people don't want council involved in anything. So there's a real plus there. And I can see no reason why we would stop it while we've got someone that's really keen to do it. So I'd be voting for it.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Livingston.
I've got a question. Can I just confirm that the Friends of the Oscar W have provided council administration with confirmation that they do want a council liaison officer to continue?
Yeah, look, there's nothing in writing. It's a verbal thing, and I guess when Councillor Oliver and I have been to their meetings and I made mention that I was stepping down, they were very keen to look at Councillor Oliver and say, would you be prepared to continue? So it was during the meetings, but they've never put it in writing because I guess we didn't think it was going to be a damn issue, but apparently it is.
It actually goes back, I can tell you it goes back over 15 years because I was on it and so was Jim Davis. And I was on several other incorporated bodies representing council.
Thank you, Mayor Parks. I will ask the mover, because I seconded it, if we can add appoint Councillor Peter Oliver as council liaison, etc., subject to receiving formal request from the Friends of the Oscar W, just so then we do tick that governance piece off. I do think it's an important role, and historically we have always had it. Similar to Councillor Miller, I would like to see more information exactly what the boundaries of this role entail, which goes to the officers' comments as well. However, I understand verbally, at least, the Friends have requested this to occur, and it has worked really well in the past, so I would like to see it continue.
Councillor Coomans, you're happy with that being in there? Yep. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Miller, you've already spoken to it, so you've got a question?
I have a question. Thank you. My question relates to, if we do this appointment, will that lead to a relief from the administration for all of the support they are providing, which I understand is the expertise they are seeking now from Councillor Oliver? If that's the case, then I'd like that on the record or something, that I'm happy to support Councillor Oliver being on there if it's going to relieve some of the administrative resource that's being devoted to the Oscar. It's not the only tourism asset that we have, and I appreciate your point about the Armfield, who I think have 7 or 9 of our boats. I don't even quite understand that either. So can we please have some reassurance that Councillor Oliver will be performing the role that is currently being performed to a very high degree, as I understand it, by administration?
Through the Chair, administration will continue to liaise as it currently does with Oscar W, regardless of whether there's a liaison councillor or not.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Coomans, do you want to write a reply?
Sure. I guess what we're forgetting is that council actually owns this boat. It belongs to council. It might only be worth $1, but it's still a boat that's very, very precious, not only to the volunteers that sail on it, but to the community as a whole. I was looking for some comments from administration here, because some of them was mentioned that it does take a bit of pressure off staff, because the liaison officer does take on some responsibility in discussion, and then perhaps the end result is some discussion with the CEO or the staff. There's no financial implications with this. I can see it as benefits. Mayor Parks, you've already mentioned that you were part of this sort of thing. Jim Davis was for many years. Councillor Oliver's prepared to do it. I don't really see what the issue is. I can see it only as benefits, and I'm quite happy for someone to contact the Oscar W and say, "Are you happy to have Councillor Oliver as a liaison officer?" I reckon they'd probably say yes. So thank you.
So that ends the discussion. I'll put the motion to you. All those in favour? Against? That's lost. Sorry, it's carried. I'll be right. Distracted. So item 9 is administration reports. 9.1 is an additional ordinary council meeting for February 2026. There's a recommendation there that we do so, but there's a little gap there where we need to insert a date. So I think we just need to maybe we can have just for a few minutes. If somebody wants to move a date, that's fine, or we can have an informal discussion about it, but there's probably only one suitable date. Councillor Nick Livingston, you wish to move it?
Yes, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the 23rd of February? 24th of February. Thank you.
Is the second of Councillor Oliver? Yeah. Is there any discussion? Councillor Miller?
I think I've missed something, Your Worship. I thought we were talking about the 9th of February. That's the date that was being proposed when this first was proposed.
It was proposed originally, but as you know, I was waiting for people to let me know whether they were available, and we're not all available. And we looked at several dates. This is the date which, as far as we know, people are available.
So does that mean we would not achieve quorum before the 24th of February? Is that what?
to be absolutely honest with you, I'm not interested about a quorum. I'm interested in 100% attendance at this meeting, which is the South Coast Growth Strategy Area Q. I'm not going to chair a meeting unless everybody is here. So that's the date. Is there any discussion relating to the date or availability? Councillor Thornton.
Just checking that that's meant to be a Tuesday. That's a Tuesday? It's meant to be? It's a Tuesday. Is it meant to be?
So just so everybody knows, so we've asked it 3 times now, it's a Tuesday. So it's going round and round the room, it's Tuesday. Councillor Livingston, you got a question?
Yes, I'm just wondering if we can go informal for 5 minutes, just to check that. I understood it was the Monday of that week that we were looking at. That was my last conversation. So can I please ask that we go informal for 5 minutes?
So Councillor Livingston is moving that we go informal. Is there a seconder for that? All in favour? Against? That's carried. So we go informal for 5 minutes. Leave of the meeting to do that, to go informal. Yep, so that's granted. Councillor Miller.
I must have missed being asked if I was available on the Tuesday the 24th of February, because I certainly haven't been asked. So how you've established that everybody's available on that date, I would be interested to know, Your Worship.
I haven't, and I didn't make that statement. I said no, everybody wasn't available on the 9th, and everybody wasn't available on the 23rd. And we wanted to get this thing done with and dealt with. As you saw by the attendance in the gallery tonight, it's important. And we don't want to mix it in with other stuff in a council meeting. Do it separately.
I'm available on the 24th of February. Can we please go around the room and check this, please?
Anybody not available on the 24th? You're not available? Or we might be having on the 24th. Because I'm quite serious, I won't be here if you're not all here. So if we've got that far, we've obviously got not everybody's available on the 24th. When is everybody available?
I think everybody indicated they are available on the 24th. Is that correct? No? Right.
Just wondering what an alternative is. Our general council meeting is normally would be on the 16th of February. Is there any way that we could make the first hour for this and then go into our other normal? No, can't. Okay.
Because everybody isn't available on the 16th. And we want more than an hour for this. This is not going to take an hour. It's a separate meeting just for this so that we can dedicate deputations and proper discussion.
So all the Mondays, is it correct? All the Mondays we can't get full house.
So members, what we're trying to do is Councillor Oliver has requested leave of absence, which was granted, and that is the 9th of February through to the 23rd of February inclusive. So as the Mayor said, he's very keen to have all members available for that particular matter. Given the 9th to the 23rd, Councillor Oliver's not available. That's what we're trying to work around at this point in time. Further to that, Matt Atkinson and his team need a little bit of time to finalise what they need to do. So bringing that forward earlier than the 9th of February is mission impossible at this point in time. So that's what we're trying to accommodate.
Well, there are other nights during that week. We don't have to have it on a Monday night or even on a Tuesday night. So if we can get a consensus around any night.
And the flexibility is definitely there, but again, for all members to be present, we'd need to at this stage avoid the 9th to the 23rd inclusive. So we're flexible, whatever works for members, of course.
What about Monday the 2nd of March, because that's midway between the two council meetings? Sorry. What about then the 2nd of March, which is midway between the February council meeting and the March council meeting?
I also, as members know, I will be nominating as a candidate in the upcoming state election. My understanding through the Act is that I will automatically be put on leave from the date the nominations close, which I understand to be the 27th of February.
My apologies, Councillor Livingston, I overlooked that.
Wednesday the 25th?
Members, is there availability for Wednesday the 25th? Just going to go around the table from Councillor Coomans. Everyone happy for the 25th of Wednesday? Is there another day that week that members are available?
26th, the Thursday.
6 availability, members?
I'll make myself available any night that you want,
So
actually.
just confirming again, everybody's available for Wednesday the 26th of February.
Thursday the 26th.
Sorry, Thursday the 26th of February. Yep.
So we'll go back to normal meeting procedure. So we have a informal discussion around the date of the 26th, Thursday the 26th of February to be inserted in dot point 2. So the mover was Councillor Livingston. Are you happy with that in there? And Councillor Oliver, you seconded it. So is there any further discussion? No. So I've put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. So 9.2 is the Murray-Darling Association Region 6 Regional Chairperson and Executive Committee Member nominations. Are there any conflicts of interest around this? Councillor Livingston.
Thank you, Mayor Parks. I'd just like to declare a general conflict of interest as a delegate and potential nominee for the chair position. I wouldn't receive any financial benefit either way. I will debate and not vote.
Any other? Councillor Scott.
I'm in a similar situation as being one of the delegates to the Murray-Darling Association, and again, there's no financial benefit, but I would be prepared to stand again if I was nominated, so I will not vote. Thank you, but I'll stay.
So that we can then work out whether it's a draw, whether we can do it the short form or the long form. First, we need to know, is there a person that wishes to nominate as the chair?
May I nominate someone?
Either way, yeah. You can nominate.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Livingston.
And
And also, at the same time, I'd like to suggest Councillor Scott for an executive committee member.
Through the chair, the executive committee members, I did a bit of research to understand what that is, and historically it's been the chair of the MDA Region 6 and the CEOs of the various councils. So I guess with that particular one, members may wish to nominate me or not.
Councillor Livingston, you're happy with being nominated for the chair?
Yes, I am, and I'd just like to ask a question which the answer might answer Councillor Gardner's question, that in the hypothetical event that I'm nominated as chair and our CEO is nominated for the executive committee member, that does not change that Councillor Scott remains as the secondary delegate, the same as we've been operating this term.
Councillor Oliver, you wish?
Sorry, just a question of clarity. I thought you were both delegates, but is one of you a prime delegate and the other one's a backup? No.
Through your worship, the membership, there are 2 delegates per participating council, but there is also a population formula which gives Alexandrina a 3rd delegate. And so they're all equal delegates, essentially. What this is talking about is the regional chairperson, which is, so the delegates will stay as they are, but the regional chairperson is the chair of the executive committee, but they also chair of the region. And the executive committee, as it says, is an executive that meets together and plans activities for the region, and then all of the members of the region come together for the regional meeting. So it's essentially an additional meeting that happens.
So is there somebody who would like to nominate for the executive committee member?
Can I nominate the CEO?
Thank you. So, Andrew, you're happy, is that right? Are there any other nominations for any of the positions? So if not, I'll look for a move. So we're looking at recommendation group A and recommendation group D. So is there a mover for that? Move Councillor Oliver. Second, Councillor Miller. Any discussion? Not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Councillor Miller. (9.3) is the quarterly performance report Q2 of 2025-26. There's a recommendation there with 3 dot points. Councillor Livingston, yep.
Thank you, Mayor Parks. I'm declaring a material conflict of interest due to a related party, and ask that the recommendation be split so that I can have the opportunity to debate part of it, vote on part of it, and then I will leave the chamber in relation to the Malang Jetties renewal.
So we'll do the Malang Jetties one first. So if you'd like to go then. So we should have done the dot point 1, shouldn't we? Or we can do this one separate first, that Lachlan, can we? So we'll do dot point 1 and the Malang Jetties first. So is there a mover for that? Move Councillor Miller. Second, Councillor Maidment. Is there any discussion? Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that this is proof that our financial processes have improved so much and are working so well in our budget management. So thank you to the admin and thank you for everyone. It's just a delight to see this packaged up like that. Thank you.
Councillor Miller. You got a question or something? Or?
Well, I didn't get to move to speak when I moved it.
Well, you didn't. Sorry, you didn't ask, but that's fine. Go ahead.
I have some questions about just a couple of the projects. So if we're receiving a noting, should I ask them now or should I wait until we do the next bit? So,
we're only doing the Malang Jetties.
But we're receiving a note in the contents of the report as well.
We're just receiving the note and the contents of the report, but we're doing if the questions relating to the note and the contents and not the projects.
So the rest of them we're going to do all together, is that right?
The only reason we're doing the Malang one separately is because Councillor Livingston had a conflict of interest. That's
no, I understand that, Your Worship. I just was...
Questions relating to the quarterly performance report, that's fine.
Yes, it is. Thank you. So I note that I only can reiterate what Councillor Oliver just said, that the quality of this report is really good, and And I just want to acknowledge how the presentation of this information continues to evolve. I recognise and thank administration for the officer commentary regarding the projects at risk and projects with budgetary issues. This type of report for me, and I hope the community, sees that it enhances transparency and confidence and keeps our community informed. I'm very pleased to see where we need to do more. We also identify where we will do less or how we will accommodate budget changes. And importantly, I wish to acknowledge that the recommendations make it very clear what we are resolving, which means the minutes reflect this and certainly make it much more transparent and easier to go back and find when we changed a decision. I have a question about one of the other projects, but if we're going to deal with that in the next batch, I'll ask that then. Thank you.
So is there any further discussion? Councillor Maidment, we're talking about document 1 and the jetties. Yeah.
This is a good news story for the Malang community around the jetties renewal, which has been a long time coming. And I'd ask that we expedite some form of media release so that the Malang people can understand what's happening in that, with that particular renewal process, the timeline, etc.
Any further discussion? Questions? No. So I think as Alan knows that the jetty's falling apart, the main jetty. Oscar bumped it on the weekend and several planks disappeared. And only touched it lightly. So, and I don't know about you, but others, but I get regular contact from people down there about the state of the jetty and how dangerous it is. So, it's good. So, Councillor Miller, do you wish to write a reply on that one? No. So I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. So we can get Councillor Livingston back, please. And now we'll talk about the remainder of 2 and 3. So is there a mover for anything that? Councillor Coomans? Councillor Oliver? Councillor Oliver is seconding it. Any discussion? Councillor Miller?
Just regarding the... sorry, are we doing part 3 as well? Yes, so which is now part 2. So, I don't have an issue with upgrading Montpellier Terrace and North Terrace from funds secured from within the existing road reseal program. I'm just interested to know if we won't be doing something else so that we can do this. That would just be helpful to know. I don't have an issue with it. I just want to understand, given my comments previously, we put something in, we take something out, and which project's at risk now because we're doing this.
Through the Mayor, thank you for the question. No, there is no substitution occurring here. There is the opportunity within that program to do this work due to other projects within that program stream being under budget.
So it's any for Councillor Miller.
Does that mean there's potentially other projects that we could do as well? Will we have that chance to have that consideration of, or are they worked out on a hierarchy or an assessment that just brings them forward? They're all in an order of need without any discussion from us.
Through the Mayor, there already was work to be done in Montpellier. There was 2 sections of resurfacing to be done in that environment. So we are simply enhancing that work scope slightly to incorporate this work, which has been requested for the last couple of years. We're just taking that opportunity now. So we're not adding anything new per se. We are slightly changing the scope, hence the reason why it's in this report.
Through the Chair, further to those comments, we believe there may be some savings in the Seal Road program. We did discuss it at length, but we didn't want to bring that that to the chamber prematurely. So I guess that's where that additional expenditure is coming from.
So is there any further? Councillor Nicholson?
Thank you. I just have a question about the Port Elliot Playground budget decrease. This one is, the other two projects that are being decreased are described as coming, the cost of it coming in under budget, so still being delivered, but the budget is less, whereas the Port Elliot Playground renewal looks to me as though it is being deferred. So is that the case?
Through the chair, I've been involved with a number of conversations around the planning of that playground, which includes conversations with the park operator, and for council to deliver it prematurely may miss an opportunity that may exist with the park operator. So we want to have those conversations and get to a point where everybody understands who's contributing what, which is what we're still working on. And given the length of that, I guess, negotiation, we know once the detailed design is done and those conversations are concluded that it's going to be beyond this financial year. So it's something that we see, subject to council's approval, being rebudgeted in 26-27 and delivered in 26-27.
Thank you, Your Worship. May I propose just a change to the wording of the motion then, that that dot point regarding Port Elliot Playground renewal decrease budget by 200,000 and bring back to a future budget for consideration. Is that it?
So that's a variation to the... So Councillor Coomans and Councillor Oliver, you both happy to have that change? Yep. So is there any further discussion? Councillor Scott, yeah.
Just need clarification, Your Worship. You wanted me to further discussion on the playground or on the whole motion? Right, sorry.
Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 9.4 is the annual community plan and budget and long-term financial plan for 2026. The timeline, and there's a recommendation there with 2 top points. So is there a mover for that? Councillor Miller. Yep.
Thank you, Worship. I just really appreciate this report being in the public agenda. It will certainly make it a lot easier to respond to public comments, and I can't wait for this process to commence, given how much or how well received and thorough it was last year. And I just want to thank the staff again for last year's process, and I imagine it will only be enhanced this year.
So do we have a seconder? Councillor Nicholson. Any discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Councillor Scott, are you in favour or against?
I'm trying to find it. Bear in mind, I don't have a screen in front of me. It's not working, so I'm just trying to keep up with what the motion is. So, what are you actually putting? Number 5.1.
I will try again now. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Go to 9.5, which is the draft state election advocacy plan for March 2026. There's a recommendation there with 3 dot points. Councillor Nicholson, you moving that?
Apologies, Your Worship, that I didn't flag it at the beginning of the meeting, but I would like to declare a conflict of interest. So as a candidate in the state election, I believe it is possible that an impartial, fair-minded person might consider that my private interests might result in me acting in a manner contrary to my public duty. So I will leave the chamber for the debate and not vote. Thank you.
So 9.5 is the draft state election advocacy plan, March 2026. So, Andrew or Tash, anything to add to this?
Through the chair, members, I just wanted to make the point that this advocacy plan has deliberately been kept really short and succinct. This organisation does need to consider, however, as we move beyond the state government elections in March, the organisation needs to consider a longer term advocacy plan which targets federal and state government, and the more complex matters and the more lengthy advocacy journeys can sit within that plan. So the intention of this plan is to try and find some short, easy potential wins for council without having them too complex, which is where, through your feedback, and thank you for that, we've landed on the Middleton bypass and the freight corridor, as well as the Langons Creek recreational area, that is Lot 10. And we feel that sort of isolating a couple of easy picks out of that, particularly Lot 10 being the soccer fields, would be a much cleaner way to go in terms of advocating for something that's tangible and easily understood.
So there's the recommendation with 3 dot points. Councillor Miller, you wish to move it?
Yes, please, but I'll reserve my comments for closing. Thank you.
A seconder? Councillor Scott.
In seconding, if I just mention that I had the opportunity of spending some time with the Minister for Human Services on Saturday, and I was asked, what are we looking for? And I was able to have a good discussion with her about Lot 10 and the freight bypass. And so we'll hope that might bear fruit.
Any further discussion? Councillor Maidment, and
Yeah, a question and an observation. We've got the Premier going around to all parts of South Australia, followed on quickly by the Liberal leader, but no show in Alexandrina to date. Is there any chance that we can actually get him on the ground, or is it a case of where's Wally?
Through the chair, I believe some of the actions that sit within the advocacy plan actually target, it's probably the wrong terminology, approach the Premier in relation to those two matters as well, in writing and an invitation to site too, I believe. Yeah.
Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, when I went through this, I was disappointed at first that it didn't include enough. We weren't asking for enough, and I gave that feedback. And what came back was what the CEO just said, that there will be a broader, more detailed process, and I'm confident that the other 4 or 5 areas that I wanted to include will be picked up in that process soon. So thank you for that.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Coomans.
Look, I have no issue at all with the Middleton South Coast freight route. I think that's an excellent project that we should be supporting, given that that part of Middleton with the traffic flow and everything, it really needs something done sooner rather than later. But I do have an issue with Lot 10. To me, Lot 10 is something nice to have. We've already got a federal member who's pushing for something like $10 million for a basketball stadium on that location. And personally, I'm not at all in support of funding a soccer club to Lot 10. I think I would prefer to see some land made available for them to use that, and then they go and get their grants and things. I don't see that as a council responsibility, especially I come from an area where the community owns most of the land. To me, a much more pressing issue is another traffic issue. And like the busiest road in Alexandrina being the Victor Harbour Road. And the Victor Harbour Road and the Nankita Road, which is owned by council, that junction needs some serious work. And there are a number of options for that. One is traffic lights, probably a cheap option. An extra slip lane that heads north. But the community is starting to talk about actually diverting Nankita Road and joining onto a road a little bit further down. It's called Tay Road, and installing an 80-metre roundabout, just like we have at Robinson Road in Old Noarlunga and down at Victor Harbour. Because remember, Nankita Road is a heavy vehicle freight route, dedicated, yet we own the road, which probably should never have happened, but it does. And I think that is something that really needs funding. And the state government themselves can then look at funding Victor Harbour Road, because that's their responsibility. But that part of Nankita Road belongs to council, and I think that's where some money should be spent. And it's something that needs to be done sooner rather than later. To me, it's one heck of a lot more important than a soccer field on Lot 10, which could be accommodated by other means. It's important to get the soccer team off the pony club land and dedicate that for horse type activities and get that sort of sport onto Lot 10, but I think they should be advocating for funding grants and things, not do it through council. So I guess if we're going to do two at the same time, I've got to oppose this. If we do one at a time, I'm certainly in support of the Middleton heavy freight bypass, because that does need to be done. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Livingston.
Thank you, Mayor Parks. Probably similar to Councillor Oliver, I guess a bit disappointed not seeing more in their focus to other points in our A2040 plan in particular, and I can appreciate where the CEO is coming from, and I agree with the recommendation, so I've got no issues with the two projects. I think in particular when the state government are pushing development here, these two projects sit quite nicely with that. But in saying that, we struggle every budget cycle to commit to funding our projects relating to the environment, and I would just really like to see, and I'm happy to not formally put it in there, but when the request is made to the Premier to visit our area, that emphasis is put on that, especially with the latest federal announcement, because there's a lot more that we could do. There's a lot more that we talk about in the SEEK committee that we can provide for Alexandrina, but every budget cycle it's an issue. So I would like to see some of those things be advocated for as well.
Any further discussion? Before you have your right to reply, I'll just point out to you, we're advocating and lobbying for stuff all the time, not just one thing here. We got a high school up the road that the government bought and paid for and upgraded. It's actually magnificent. There was never a motion from this council to ask us to go and ask the Premier for it. I just pestered the hell out of him every time I saw him. And eventually, he said, every time he'd see me, he'd say, I know, high school. And we got it. That's what we do all the time. So we don't, these are just two big projects. Langhorne Creek particularly, Lot 10, particularly I see as a project similar to the Langhorne Creek Discovery Trail, where we can do a partnership bid and try and get massive funding towards it. But we've got to put it in the system. So have your right of reply.
Thank you, Worship. I think I agree absolutely with everything that you just said. I do appreciate the comments from my colleagues, and we have to have something in an advocacy plan. If you look at where the Premier is going and making announcements, it is where he has a candidate, and we don't have a Labor candidate that I'm aware of here. So perhaps when we do get one, we might get a visit or more chance of a visit. These are incredibly important issues to our region, not just Strathalbyn. The recreation precinct needs to be activated, and to Councillor Coomans' point, They need land. If they get security of tenure on land, which I believe you said that's how you think we should help them, the users and the community groups will step up. Council's role in providing the land, the detailed design work and the services will facilitate and support the community to drive this. Council advocacy and facilitation is imperative for the Strathalbyn Districts Basketball Association and the Strikers Soccer Club to meet the huge demand and facilities gaps in Strathalbyn and achieve their own strategic objectives and chase funding from their own peak bodies and state and federal representatives. They will do that. They have skilled and experienced people who will do that. And it's about a partnership. And we know that without funding partnerships with state and federal government and peak bodies, the Langhorne Creek Road project will not progress with any certainty and timeliness, or the Strathalbyn Recreation Precinct. The town plan is about to commence a review and update, and I thank the administration for the responses to my earlier questions. A major part of the development of the now expired plan from 10 years ago was stakeholder engagement and input regarding recreation gaps, and the plan adopted, nearly 12 years ago, speaks specifically to what we are now referring to as the Strathalbyn Recreation Precinct. This is not a new initiative at all. I express my gratitude to you, to my colleagues and administration for what I hope will be their continued measured, informed and reasonable and proportional support for this initiative. And I thank the community stakeholders who have stayed the course and professionally and factually advocated and engaged with council on behalf of their respective users. So I think we owe it to the users and the peak bodies and to be able to partner to get funding to support this. And I'm so very grateful that we have an advocacy plan that has started, and I think the next step will be really exciting to see what we chase and make known what our community needs. And the demands are going to grow, they won't get less. So I hope that you will support this draft plan. Thank you.
That ends the discussion. I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Go to 9.6. Oh, Councillor Livingston back. Nicholson back. Yeah. So we've got 9.6 is the draft disability access and inclusion plan 2026 to 30 and the community engagement plan. Stacey, is there anything to updates on this report? So there's a recommendation there with 3 dot points. Councillor Scott. Seconder, Councillor Oliver. Is there any discussion? No? No discussion. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Um, 9.7 is the Sugars Beach new public toilet preferred location. Councillor Oliver, yep.
Sorry to interrupt, Mayor. I would like to declare a material conflict of interest in relation to item 9.7, as the Coorong Cafe, of which I'm an owner, may gain an indirect or non-pecuniary benefit or suffer a loss depending on the outcome of Council's decision on the matter. So I'd like to leave the room for the debate.
Alan, are there any updates or changes to this item? No. So there's a recommendation there with 4 dot points. Councillor Gardner, are you moving it?
Yes, Mayor Parkes. I would like to use option 1, which the Nuddenjerry note thought that was useful because it's already it's land that's free at the car park, and I think 1 or 2 of the car parks might be lost, but that might be a very good place for the new toilet to go.
moving dot point one? You're moving that with option one?
Yes.
Yeah. So do we have a seconder for that? Where's this? Let me refresh myself. Your option. Councillor Miller? Did you wish to speak to it? No, oh, I just got told you did. You seconding it? Oh, yeah. So, is there any discussion? Councillor Livingston.
Thank you, Mayor Parks. I would like to foreshadow a motion that if this is lost, I would like to move points 1 to 4, but with option 2.
So is there any further discussion? I must say that we've been talking about these toilets for as long as I can remember, and option 2 puts the toilets almost in the same proximity as they were originally, but with less interference to the dune structure. So it's a far better option, and the other one's miles too far away. But that's up to you. But if there's no, is Councillor right of reply was Councillor Gardner. Did you wish to write a reply?
No, I don't think so. Thank you.
So I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? That's with option 1. Against? That's lost. So we go back to Councillor Livingston's foreshadowed motion. To speak to it?
Yes, no, sorry. I do wish to move this with option 2, which from my review of the report ensures that there's no vegetation losses, less impact to the dune structure, and it is also the preferred option and did have clearance from NAC as well.
So is there a seconder for that? Councillor Coomans?
For all the reasons that Councillor Livingston just presented.
So is there any further discussion? If not, I will put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Against? That's carried unanimously. We'll get Councillor Oliver back.
About the actual structure of the toilets? Well,
I don't having debates and arguments in the middle of a meeting. Sorry.
I'm not debating, I'm just stating a fact that
saying,
we did 1 to 4.
So we'll move
and
on.
the construction of the toilet didn't come into it. So afterwards, I was asking if we could discuss it because it's a very real point.
It is in the report. 9.8 is the Clayton Bay BMX track consultation outcomes and next steps. Alan, are there any changes to that? Councillor Gardner, you wish to move that?
Mayor Parks, I wish to actually present another motion rather than the recommended one. May I? Thank you. That the request of the Clayton Bay residents, that at the request of Clayton Bay residents, we do not proceed with the BMX track at this time, as the Clayton Bay Community Association will be holding a community forum on February the 21st, which will include discussion on the BMX bike track. May I speak to it? Today I've had 3 conversations with Clayton Bay residents and this has been an ongoing thing since December. One of those residents was the president of the Clayton Bay Community Association, which is the prime body of Clayton Bay. All of those people whom I spoke to agreed that the Clayton Bay residents, many of them, had felt that they had not had the kind of consultation on the topic of the BMX, a bike track. They found that it wasn't meaningful to them. The universal comment I heard was that the My Say consultation was not helpful, and older people in Clayton who do not use technology have been excluded from having a say. The Clayton Bay Association decided to hold a forum on the 21st of February to consult with residents on a range of topics, and the proposed BMX bike track has been included. And they have serious concerns. It's only a tiny community. To be honest, I don't think it's going to be much of a problem if we put a hold on this for a couple of months until they've had their consultation and can get back to us. Honestly, I'd really appreciate it if you agreed to this motion.
So do we have a seconder for that, Councillor Oliver?
I too, Mayor, have heard the loud objections from some small people, but they're pretty close and they're going to be pretty affected. But what's been resonated to me is that the way that this project got into the system, and it seems like it entered our planning from a suggestion, a good suggestion, but only from a very small number of people. And the rest of the community are telling me that they didn't necessarily feel involved in that process, or it was only a small number of people. And that I'm hearing also that they would like it revisited. The need for it to be revisited, the priorities with respect to other stuff. So I support and thank Councillor Gardner.
Any Councillor Nicholson?
Thank you. I will support this motion at the stage because I do take into great consideration the perspectives of the community that have been expressed to Councillor Gardner. But I do have a concern that sometimes when projects are proposed by families who potentially don't have a lot of time or ability to engage with council, they can attract afterwards a lot of attention from other residents of the community, and I think it's really fabulous that they will be holding a community forum on this to discuss as a community, because sometimes these decisions can't be made just as a proportionate kind of vote or feedback, and purely looking at the numbers. We do need to have a little bit deeper, a bit of a deeper look at the qualitative opinions that are presented to us as well, not just in the numbers. So I really look forward to the discussion that is had at the community forum and more information for council to make some future decisions.
Councillor Livingston?
Thank you, Mayor Parks. I have a few questions, but I'd support the motion 100%. Is firstly about us receiving and noting the contents of the report provided by administration and the community engagement feedback report. Will that come back to the next council meeting when we discuss the project?
Through the Mayor, preference would be that it is noted and received at this meeting, just so we can move forward on what resolution is then adopted.
Two other questions. My second question is, how would we be receiving formal feedback from the association for us to consider in the chamber? And my third question is, what is the timing for this? Noting we'd be looking at March meeting and then we start the budget process.
Through the Mayor, so just to go back slightly, there have been 2 rounds of consultation on this project. The first was to talk about having a facility of some description, and that was with that entire community. There were over 100 people that participated in that consultation, of 47 of which were residents of that community. And they agreed with a facility going in, they agreed with a bike facility going in of some description. That's what we have progressed. And this second round was not meant to talk to whether or not that should be there, because we believe we had established that point. And that the second round was about what sort of facility should be in place to give people the opportunity, because there are several types of bike facilities that could be put there. In the initial round of consultation, I believe that we did receive a submission from the Community Association, which was positive. So whilst I understand that people can definitely change their position on items such as this, I would say that in terms of how we're going to receive that information, we've got no level of control, no level of influence, and we've got no level of engagement with that process, with that community group. So what they end up doing, which I'm sure will be fine, will still be presented by that community group, and it will be taken on face value, because we'll have nothing, we would have not participated at all in that process. The 2 rounds of consultation that have been undertaken have been done in a manner which is consistent with our own policies, and therefore has allowed for what we believe has been a fair and reasonable approach and feedback from the community. So we will have to receive that information from the community group as they present it, and we will have no opportunity, as far as I'm aware at the moment, to engage, influence or provide any kind of support in there.
Thank you for that, that's helpful. With the approval of the mover and the seconder, I would like to add 1 and 2 in there so that we can note the report, note the community feedback report, and I'd also like to include a point that it be brought back to a meeting in the chamber no later than April.
The mover happy with that? Yes. Seconder? Happy? Yep, they're happy with that, so you want to pop that in there, please, Tanya? So, is there any, hang on just a sec, is there any further discussion, Councillor Coomans?
Yeah, I just have a question. When the Community Association meets, will they have something on paper that sort of shows them some sort of concept or what the possibilities are, or will they just be asked for their own input without having anything to look at? Because that's what number 3 is actually saying, I thought.
Yeah. So through the Mayor, we would be progressing and we would be progressing to a concept design because we recognise that the feedback we receive from some of those few residents that are concerned about the facility is that some of their concerns, and actually in the main, a lot of their concerns are around the aesthetic. So they're around what it will look like. They don't want trees removed. They don't want asphalt everywhere. And we do say within the report that we would run to a concept and then provide that information to them. To be able then to visualise and get a real feel for what that facility would look like. And I think that would provide a much greater opportunity for them people to make a more informed decision about whether or not they want such a facility in that location. So we talked to that within the report. It is something that we would definitely want to do, and we recognise that is from the majority of those that responded back negatively. That is their concern, is the aesthetic, not really appreciating or understanding, which is completely understandable, what it might end up looking like. So we'd really like that opportunity to progress a concept and then have that conversation.
I guess what I use as an example is that a pump track has just been built in the Compass Rec Park, and there's a lot of trees in that park. And when they built it, it went all around the trees. They sort of took that in hand when they designed it, and it's become very, very popular. And it's not bitumen; it's dirt gravel type of construction, and it really just integrates into the park very nicely. So I can't really support this because I really think that 3 is something that council should be doing, providing some sort of concept ideas, so at least the group can have a look and see what's proposed. At the moment, all they've got is a blank piece of paper that says BMX track or pump track or whatever, without knowing what it's about, and they're making their own minds up as to what they think it's going to be, when they're not actually visualising what some of the options are. So maybe I'll foreshadow a motion that we go back to including number 3. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I really don't have any issue with what I understand to be just delaying the decision making until they've had an opportunity to comment on the concepts that will still be progressed, if that's what I've heard. That will still do the design, what it looks like, so that there's something for them to actually comment on. And is it just the location or just the aesthetics?
Through the Mayor, just to clarify, this motion as it's written doesn't allow for us to provide a concept design to the community to be able to visualise and see and respond on. It is having us hold for the results of, or the outcome of, the community forum that the Clayton Bay Community Association are running, based on the current information they have available to them. So as coming back to what I previously advised to Councillor Coomans, it would be helpful for us to be able to provide a concept design to the community, including the community association, so that they can visualise it and they can feel it and start to get a real sense for what it could look like and what it means in terms of environmental and aesthetic.
Councillor Miller.
Oh. By way of comment, I think I understand where Councillor Coomans is coming from, but equally I want to make sure this project succeeds, and to do that, to hear and make sure the community is willing to embrace it. And just as an observation, I think we do forget that not everybody is online, and we do tend to focus our feedback to those who are capable of engaging through My Say and electronically, and I know that makes it easy to report, but I do think we exclude the older members of our community with, and I don't mean disrespect from that. I have an elderly parent who's just not technology proficient, so but deeply interested in the community. So I guess I'm trying to understand: are we just deferring a decision until April by doing this, notwithstanding that there's been considerable consultation? That's what we're doing. Just waiting, and we'll make the decision in April.
Should we be putting number 5, moving 4 to 5, and inserting that they provided with concept plans? I'm getting a bit lost in all this, to be quite honest. I mean, we're going around. Isn't there a simple way out of it? We just include them in the plans, give them the plans, and they discuss it at their meeting and get back to us. Wouldn't that be a possibility? Or?
Through the Mayor, to reaffirm what I've said, that a concept design I think would be very advantageous in communication with the community and with any further consultation that we might have with them. The motion that is up will not allow that to happen. We can't turn a concept design around in that period of time. So it's going to take a couple of months for us to get that concept design ready, particularly as we will provide it in a form that is easy to digest, and which will mean some rendering and other things that will need to occur. We will need a couple of months at the very least to be able to produce that and then get that back out to the community.
Well, further to that then, with the permission of the mover and seconder, that we need to we need to have a 4 in there that says that can we develop a plan, that we advise the community, that the organisation, that a plan will be forthcoming, but not in time for their February the 21st meeting. So they may have to change their meetings, but does a reporting by the 26th of April, is that workable from your point of view, or do we need to push that out further?
Through the Mayor, we will be able to bring a report back to Council in April, but we would be bringing back, at the moment, we're doing nothing more. As the motion is up, we would not be progressing any further design work on this matter until the Community Association have held their community forum on the 21st of February, and we would be bringing back a report on that basis, but we wouldn't be bringing back a design.
Through the Chair, if I may, my suggestion is we have an annual community plan which has this budget allocated, which allows for that design work to be done. My expectation is Alan and his team will continue to do the design work, but acknowledging that it may not meet the timeline of the association. My suggestion is that council members allow them to do their consultation, that comes back to council for consideration, and the next steps in terms of the design or whatever that next step may be can be considered as part of that April report, if not before.
Councillor Oliver, you've already spoken to it. Councillor Livingston,
Question.
you've asked questions, yep.
Roughly, sorry, I can't recall, what's the cost of the concept design?
I would need to take that on notice, but I would suggest it would be 10 to 15,000. I'm guessing on the basis that it will need some level of survey work and then the rendering needed to ensure that it's in a form that the community can digest and connect with. Yeah, it would be around, I'm guessing around about the mark, but I can take that on notice and come back to you.
So is there any further discussion? Councillor Gardner, do you wish to use your right of reply?
I think we need to listen to this community. I have spoken to people who are leaders in the community, and they have serious concerns, not just about the BMX track, but about how things developed around the BMX track. The MySay survey, where they felt they couldn't say they didn't want it because they didn't have a choice. They could either choose this choice, or this choice. And some of them didn't want to say any of the choices, but they wanted to say, we don't want it, we'd rather do something else. So, there is a lot of, there are some, I can't say a lot, there are some disgruntled people, upset, concerned people in Clayton Bay, and there are some people who want to explore, and that's what will happen when they meet on the 21st. What else? What other things can we do? We might actually want a bike track, but not a BMX track. But they want to have that opportunity to talk about it with their community. And look, we don't need to rush things. We haven't rushed the wharf at all. We've stopped, and we're now starting all over again with a new way of working. Surely we can do this for this little group of people. I simply don't understand why there is some reluctance in this room. So I'm hoping that you will actually go along and help this small community. I think we have an obligation to look after them.
So that ends the discussion. I'll put the motion to you. All those in favour? Against? It is carried. So now, before we go to 9.9, Lachlan suggested to me that you might like to have a short comfort break. Are you all in favour of that? No? So we need a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is there a mover for that? Seconder? Councillor Scott and Councillor Oliver. All in favour? Right, so we'll adjourn it for... Make it easy, make it 8 minutes. We'll be back here at 8 o'clock exactly. Right, we'll recommence the meeting. So 9.9 is the Goolwa Visitor Information Centre, proposed co-locate to Signal Point Experience Centre. Stacey, is there anything to change or add to this report? No. So there's a recommendation there with 4 dot points. Is there a mover for that?
Can I please move recommendation 1?
Is there a seconder for dot point 1? Councillor Nicholson. Is there any discussion? Councillor Miller.
I'd just like to thank administration for their succinctness and quality and all the points covered in the report. I thought it was an excellent report that covered the key messages. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? So I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. We go. Now we've got 2, 3 and 4 to go. Councillor Miller.
I'd like to move 2, 3 and 4 as printed. Thank you, Worship.
Sorry?
I would like to move 2, 3 and 4 as printed. Thank you.
Thanks. So do we have a seconder for that, Councillor Oliver? Any discussion? No, so I'll put Councillor Livingston.
Thank you, Mayor Parks. I can't support this as printed, and for various reasons, and I do appreciate the work that administration have gone through to get us to this point. However, there's a few things. Firstly, it's quite difficult to make a decision, in my view, of such a magnitude when we don't have a clear strategic direction on the VIC or the old post office, if it is empty, firstly. Number two, if it is empty, I feel like that is an opportunity missed for connectivity between the Wharf Precinct and the main street. Number three, and it might be a question, I'm a bit confused in the report. It talks about a saving of 261,000 for the co-location of the VIC into Signal Point. However, when we had the report from Alex Brown, the savings for SCRAC and the VIC moving into Signal Point was 281,000. So I'm trying to understand why there's only a $20,000 difference with SCRAC remaining. The other point is 67% of our community voted against it, and I think that is a very important point to make. And the last point that I'll make is that I haven't seen to date with this review that we're looking at, which hasn't been presented to council as yet, that we have exhausted our options for volunteer recruitment and opportunity in that space, which would reduce our operating expenses for both potentially or across the Wharf Precinct area. So I'm finding it difficult to make a decision of this magnitude that affects the community when the community have said no to it, when we haven't explored the opportunities which we said that we would with the holistic review.
Any further discussion? Councillor Maiden.
Yes, we've heard over the years about the possible savings with the combination of these two enterprises, and it excites me that there's in the vicinity of $261,000 saving. Yes, some people in the community don't want anything taken away, yet we have two arts facilities in the one town, which quite easily could be combined. So, and as you all know, it's the Alexandrina Council, and wherever we can save money and not lose a service per se, then we should be looking at it. The fact that the council bought the building back in 2009, the old post office of $500,000, I'm sure that valuation's gone up considerably, and maybe that's something we might want to look at down the track in divesting that particular building. I don't know. It would have to go to the community on that. So I'm quite pleased with the motion as presented, 2, 3 and 4, and we'll be voting accordingly.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mayor Parks. I was very much against being moved from the VIC in the position that it is in now, and in fact voted against, I can't remember whether I voted, well, I would have voted against it being moved. However, fortunately, I think it's fortunately, I'm always willing to be swayed if I think that there's a really good argument to do something. And we had the opportunity, that is this chamber, had the opportunity to go to Signal Point and we had the CEO and general manager of, I can never remember, whatever. We had Stacey come and Leah Grace, and there were other staff members there who explained not only the economic benefit of moving the VIC down to Signal Point, but showed us in a very visual way how Signal Point would benefit from the VIC being down in that lower level. And I was intrigued. It would be very easy for me after today, after this morning, to be emotionally swayed to say, no, things have got to stay in where they are, the VIC. Because there were some very passionate volunteers in Signal Point this morning who don't want to have change. And I really understand that. No one likes change. Well, not necessarily everyone, but in general, people don't want to have change if they think things are okay as they are. But we, as a chamber, have an obligation not just to think about one or two people, but a whole community and what's going to be best for the community in the long run. And sometimes you can't see what's going to happen in the end. You know, sometimes there's a plan, but who knows what's going to happen in the future. But I think we have an opportunity, if we move the VIC to the lower floor of Signal Point, we have an opportunity when we have this review of the Wharf precinct as a whole. Imagine what we could do as a community or as a precinct if we had a particular something going on in the Wharf that is special, that isn't in other places perhaps. In other locations, we have an opportunity when we have the review of having an amazing place where we might be able to put a whole range of people in who are doing similar sorts of things maybe, or I don't know, the sky's the limit really, but it's about trusting the process. And yes, we don't know what's going to happen from this process. We don't know what's going to happen when we have the review. But I know that there are people in our community who have ideas, creative ideas of what might happen down at the Wharf. So I'm going to vote for this, the whole thing, because I think we have an opportunity, and I think we have an obligation too, to do something inventive, creative, for our Wharf, bring in money to council, because we've got these lovely buildings which do need some work, I must admit. But we have an opportunity to have something quite special. So I'm hoping you will vote for this because I think it's important.
Any further discussion? Councillor Thornton.
I think this plan is brilliant. I think the cost saving is brilliant. And I'm always one I love getting feedback from the community and my say. 67% of the community saying no is a bit misleading because it was 126 of, if you only count Goolwa, almost 8,000 people. So I think this is a brilliant plan and I can't wait to implement it.
Any further discussion?
Yes.
Councillor Scott.
This is, to me, rather unfortunate, really. I remember the Signal Point in its glory days, and I lament what is going on with Signal Point. It worries me that if we and I've heard what's been said, and I appreciate, yes, there's potential to save money. Well, and that's what makes it so difficult. But we're adding yet another thing to Signal Point. When it was this magnificent gallery, it's not even called a gallery now. It's called an experience centre. Well, that's pretty non-descriptive. But anyway, personally, I think we're going to diminish the visitor centre to be down there. It's going to be smaller. We were told when we went to we had the information briefing down there that they were going to jettison some of the product or the whatever they were doing down there, some of the whatever they provide. It may well be exported to another business somewhere else. I did suggest that, what about trying to move that front window to give themselves a bit more room, because it's going to be very tight down there by comparison with other information centres that I've been to. To me, it just adds to the lament that I have that the Signal Point has gone down a path that I haven't agreed with, and so I struggle to make a decision over this. I take the point of what's been said about the saving of the money, and that is a fairly powerful reason, but I think we've got to look almost beyond that and look at this iconic building and not necessarily let it get cluttered up with a whole lot of things in it that are not what it was really originally put there for. So I'm afraid I'm really struggling with the whole thing, and I wish it hadn't got to this stage.
Any further discussion? So before you have your right of reply, I respect the administration's position on this, where they're coming from and what they're suggesting. I don't necessarily totally agree with it. I've got mixed feelings about it. One thing I do feel very strongly about, we've lost the best art gallery outside of Adelaide. And now you've got Victor Harbour with the blasted Victor Harbour art show in a park, blitzingers. We can't do it. There's an arts group in Goolwa that Rotary used to run the Rotary Art Prize. They're doing that without the prize, but they're having to use the gymnasium at the new high school because you can't put an art exhibition in our gallery. So I just wish you'd all been here when we had the David Dryden exhibition in there, and we put it up and a heap of paintings went for auction. And we had people all over Australia and overseas bidding on paintings. It was huge, massive amount of money, and that's the potential that gallery had, and we were so highly regarded. That's how we got the Regional Centre of Culture. And they can put all that money into Centenary Hall for us because we were such a leader in the arts, and we've gone downhill, in that area we've gone downhill. The only disappointing thing to me, apart from that, in this process, is that nobody's ever shown you guys, and I can't remember it, the drawings that we had done and the concept plans for what was to happen to the police station after we bought it to make it into a fit-for-purpose VIC. It's never been touched. Had a new roof on it recently, but the building's never been touched. There were going to be lots of changes to it, so it's never had a really good go. But I do respect the fact that we've got to save money, and Andrew and I've talked about this many times, and I sort of understand. I can understand the logic behind it, but But that's just my feelings on it anyway. But Councillor Miller, do you wish to?
Thank you, Worship. I'm delighted that we are finally getting to make this decision. It's a hard decision and it's a brave decision. And I think the report speaks for itself, and so I won't address all of those comments because I was going to speak to the why, but I think everybody understands the why. But what I will say is this. Arts and culture resources are not spread equitably and equally, and accessibility. What I'm trying to say is this report is about two things for me, and I had lots of dot points, but I'm not going to speak to them. It is about financial reform, restraint, cost control and sustainability. It is an important demonstration of our commitment to that. The operating budget impact of $261,000 is approximately 0.5% of general rate revenue. It's not an insignificant amount. Setting that aside, there's this brave economic decision and commitment that we've made to our community. The important thing about this decision for me is equity, access and inclusion. And we don't spread our arts and culture resources equally across the district. This is a really brave decision, and will acknowledge that two galleries within 500 metres of each other isn't equitable. It's when we have a surplus, and we've been running a surplus for a few years, I think maybe there's an opportunity. But I equally was comforted by the presentation and the embracing of this concept by staff. And, the wharf is the hero location for Goolwa. Steam Ranger and the Oscar W are there. Public access is optimal. The new wharf precinct is enhancing visitor experiences. Better parking, on-site toilets, cafe, touring art exhibitions, interactive exhibitions. I think this is a contemporary, logical, financial, equitable approach, and I do not wish to diminish the angst that this is causing in the community, but the world evolves and changes, and I just think this is the right decision for the right time, right now. Thank you.
That ends the discussion, so I'll put the recommendation, which is dot points 2, 3 and 4 to you. All those in favour? Against? It is carried. Move on to 9.10, which is lease and licence activities, October to December 2025. The quarterly report. Tash, is there anything to change? I don't know. No. There's a report there with a recommendation that we receive and note. Move Councillor Oliver. Seconder, Councillor Maidment. Any discussion? Any discussion? No. I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously, I think. 9.11 is the Delegations update, the 1st of March 2025 to the 30th of September 2025. There's a recommendation there with 5 dot points. Is there a mover for that? Move Councillor Livingston. Second to Councillor Oliver. Any discussion? So I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 9.12 is the Chief Executive Officer's report. Andrew, is there anything you need to add to that for December? Nothing? No? So the recommendation that report be received. Is there a move for that? Move Councillor Livingston. Seconded Councillor Maidment. Are there any questions of Andrew regarding his report? No, I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 9.13 is the Council Resolution Register, and there's a recommendation there we receive and note that. Move Councillor Gardner. Seconder, Councillor Coomans. Any discussion relating to that report? No, so I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Item 10 is committee reports. 10.1 is the Climate Emergency and Environment Advisory Committee. The resignation of a committee member, and there's a recommendation. Matt, is there anything to update on that report? No. There's a recommendation there with 3 dot points. Got a mover, Councillor Maidment. And seconder, Councillor Scott. Is there any discussion? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just interested in if there was any reason why. And that was probably my main question. And I note the advice about the process to recruit. And I guess my question is, do we need to run the EI, given there are still 7 members? And we've only got, the elections will be in November, council elections, and who's on the selection panel? So do we know a reason who's on the selection panel, and do we need to? Have we got sufficient numbers on this committee to not have to do this?
Thank you. Through the Mayor. We do have a current resolution of council to run the expression of interest process, which also allocates Councillor Nicholson, Councillor Livingston and the CEO or a delegate to form that. So we've actually commenced that process, albeit in the early stages. In terms of whether the positions need to be filled, there would be a future report coming back to council for the appointments in any case, so it could be considered then.
Any further discussion?
Sorry, Worship, I just wondered if we know why.
Sorry?
Do we know why the resignations?
In the letter of resignation, it referred mostly to council's current position in relation to Area Q of the South Coast Growth Strategy was the main reason.
Any further discussion? Councillor Livingston.
Thank you, Mayor Parks. I just wanted to formally acknowledge Anne and the significant contribution that she's made, not just to the SEEK or SEAC, but the former Climate Emergency Advisory Panel, and was instrumental in the development of the Climate Emergency Action Plan and Climate Emergency Plan. I look forward to continuing to work with Anne as a member of our community and advocate for environmental matters, and I'm sure she'll be beneficial for council and SEEK anyway.
Any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 11 is council member report. 11.1 is from presiding members report for December. And there's a recommendation well, there's a couple of things. I must tell you that on the 20th, the Rotary Club of Goolwa raffle draw, I didn't do. I was going to do it, but I couldn't do it. I can't tell you why I didn't do it, because I forgot. I was busy working at home and realised that I was supposed to have been there. It was like a quick phone call a few days earlier. Would I go? But it didn't hurt them. They were fine. So, but apart from that, the report's there. Is any to a mover or seconder? Move, Councillor Oliver. Seconder, Councillor Maidment. Any questions relating to that report? The only thing I will add to it is we did mention earlier about advocacy, and we talked about Mundu Pastoral Company and the government buying it. And I've got to tell you, there's a gentleman named of Ian Derbyshire was mentioned in the discussion with the ministers. Ian was some time ago, he was the chair of the Rundle Mall Management Committee. And he came to us and was the chair of our Wharf Precinct Board while that board ran. And he did a very good job. He moved to Sydney part way through and used to fly over every 6 weeks for our meetings and go back. And then he resigned from that board when we disbanded it. We didn't need the board anymore. Ian's now the CEO of the National Parks Foundation of Australia, based in Sydney. The minute Mundu Pastoral Company came for sale, Ian was on the phone wanting to know what did he have to do to buy it. The foundation wanted to buy it, that was about a year ago, and they'd just bought two bits of land for parks in New South Wales, and they'd expended their funding, which is federal, the majority is federal, philanthropic, but federal government money. So when the federal government say they put in $70 million, that money is actually the allocation for the Parks Foundation. So Ian got that money from the Prime Minister and then the Minister, and obviously a bit of talking to our Premier was a good thing, and we've got a very good Minister in Lucy Hood, Minister for Environment, and she's first class, really got her head around it. So it was a good thing, but I said to Andrew, I spoke to Ian and congratulated him on the purchase, because he really didn't get much of a mention in any of the stuff that was going on, but he was really the driver behind it. And magnificent asset for our region. That's first class, but yeah. So anyway, that's enough waffling on. I'll put it to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. So 11.2 is Council Member Activity Report. Verbal updates. So these are things that you've done in your role as a council member. Councillor Coomans.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Parks. Members are probably aware of that significant fire that's started yesterday afternoon from Nankita to Tuberang, and now further south in a huge task force of mostly volunteers fighting the fires. I've been attending and liaising to the community needs, especially this morning, and would like to give a shout out to the magnificent CFS volunteers, the SAPOL, St John Ambulance volunteers, and of course the Salvos, who have set up a giant food manufacturing facility on the Compass Oval. I'd also like to thank the many individuals offering donations and accommodation to any families affected. Some 2 houses and other buildings have been lost. I should also mention that a number of local businesses called me this morning offering their service, like the Compass Caravan Park offering their toilets and cabins and facilities for free. Drake's in Compass providing free food and drinks. The Compass Hotel has become a local meeting place and are providing food to the volunteers, and there are many, many more. I'd also like to acknowledge the CEO and senior staff offering any assistance required, which I've passed on to the CFS and others. This event really shows that the community pulls together in times of need, and it was magnificent to see. Thank you.
Are there any other updates from anybody? No? Councillor Scott.
I'd like to endorse what Councillor Coomans has said. I was out there this afternoon, or to this morning, and over lunchtime, and looked and caught up with some people out there, and I can only concur with what he said. It's left us with a ticking time bomb, because the majority, in spite of what the CFS have said about being a grass and stubble, I don't think I've ever been to a fire and seen so little grass and stubble burnt. It's mainly scrubland and trees and that sort of thing, and they are going to cause us a lot of grief potentially in the next few weeks, months, right through till March, April, till the rains come, and that is a worry, especially if we have a north wind, hot north wind. It can potentially blow it down the south. The other thing I just wanted to touch on was you were talking about the Mundu, the sale of Mundu, and I just wanted to point out that Councillor Livingston and I were at the Clayton the River, Lakes and Coorong Action Group meeting and seminar down there they held. Look, it's the best part of a couple of years ago, and I was aware that Mundu Pastoral Company would be coming on the market. It wasn't on the market, but I was told that it was coming on the market. And the guest speaker at that night was the Honourable Susan Close, Deputy Premier and Minister for the Environment. And she left early, and as she left, Councillor Livingston and I raced out of the meeting and caught her before she jumped in the car and pointed out that Mundu was coming on the market, and it would be in everybody's best interest if they could buy it. It was going to be a substantial amount of money, but we sort of emphasised to her the importance of it to the end of the Murray and to future generations. She said that they were unaware of it coming on the market, and that now she'd heard they will pursue it. And they obviously did pursue it, and the end result is that obviously with the in Derbyshire's energy and work, we now have it in government hands, and it adds to the Rankin property next door and is a huge asset to the bottom end of the river. So I just thought I'd point that out, not gaining kudos, but just pointing out that having representation on the Murray-Darling with people that are aware of the needs of it can bear fruit.
Any further reports? No, so I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Oh, sorry, we need a mover. Councillor Maidment, Councillor Nick Livingston. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Item 12 is confidential items.
South Coast Television, your community, your voice.